So hi everyone, this is Jim from Nirmata and welcome to our Kyverno community meeting. So today we're going to go through a number of different demonstrations on our latest release. And we'll also, then talk a little bit about our roadmap items. So one of few things we were going to go through, like and listed on our agenda. So the first thing, we'll go like some of these are of course like new features in the release candidate that we have. So if you haven't tried this out, it'll be a good introduction to the new features. And feel free to, of course, try out and also post feedback comments. But shooting is going to cover, one of the features we had introduced in the last release candidate, which was deny rules. So that has further matured and is ready, is ready to for GA. There's also another new feature for generate rules that Yuvraj will go through. Pooja will go through CLI and also set operators. And then we'll move on to other parts of the agenda to discuss different improvements, etc., in this patch release. So with that, let me stop sharing and hand off to Shooting for the first part of the demo.
Okay, sounds good. Let me share my screen. Okay, so can you see my screen? Is the font size okay?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Hi everyone, this is Shooting, and I've been working on Kyverno project for the past few months. So today I'm gonna demo a feature we introduced in the last release candidate, which is a deny rule type of Kyverno policy. So for this type of policy, we were defining a validate policy, but in this case, we're denying the incoming admission request. So you can, when you write the policy, you can customize your own operations of the request you want to deny. For example, here I'm denying on the update of the resource. And also I have another rule to deny the deletion of the resource. So when you write the denying policy, here you may want to set the validation failure action to enforce. So this will block the admission request if it violates the policy. But for the typical or for the normal validation policy, you can also set to audit. So they will report the violation, report any of the errors as the violation, and the resource creation or the operation should be allowed. Okay, and so as you can see here, I made the validation rule to saying that I want to deny on the update request, but I made two exceptions on the roles and cluster roles. So here, if the admission request is sent by the class admin or sent by this role, this is the namespace and this is the namespace role name. So which I'm saying that I want to exclude these two kind of requests and then deny any other type of request. So here what I match is the label. I have a label selector here. I want to match all the applications that has this label. All right. So the second rule is similar, but the operation is just writing on the deletion. All right, so go back to my cluster. To give you a rough idea, I have a Kubedium cluster. I think it's 118. Yeah, and I have Kyverno deployed here already. But if you don't have that, you can go to our GitHub repo, and it's pretty easy to install Kyverno. What you have to do is just to do a kubectl apply -f with the link of our manifest. And then you'll be installed the latest stable version of Kyverno. Since I already have it running here, I'll just skip this step. And then to demo my deny feature, I have preset my test environment. So here I have two users. So if I do kubectl auth can I, command, it'll give me all the permissions that this user has. I'm using --s, so that I'm saying that I want to get all my permissions for user John, right? And also I have another user, Peter here. So let's check the permissions Peter has. Okay, so now you can see both Peter and John have the same permission within this new namespace. So they are able to delete, update, get, the deployment, and etc. Right? So what I'm going to do here is to first create that deny policy. So I'll just need to do kubectl create -f block, and if you do kubectl get cluster policy, you'll see we have a new deny rule policy created. And then in this new namespace, I don't have any running application yet. I'm just go ahead and start one Nginx deployment, but here I'm labeling it as a critical application. Okay, so let's check if the deployment is running there. All right, so remember I have the policy two rules, to deny on the update and the deletion, but I have two exceptions for the rows and cluster rows, right? So just to quickly remind, so here I'm saying that I want to allow user John to do the update of whatever the apps is match this label, and also I allow class element to change this resource. But remember, I have a Peter user set. So to give you some idea, if I update the deployment, so here I'm gonna label the deployment Nginx with some random label, and I'm going to send the request as Peter. Okay, so now you can see the admission webhook blocks the updates or to add the label for this resource because we have that deny rule. Here gives you the clear detail that which resource is blocked by this policy, this rule. And if you want to check, if you want to verify the block rule for the user John, so here I'm putting the same label here, but I'm sending the request as user John. Oops. Cannot get resource. Give me a sec.
So I think there's an extra N maybe after John.
All right. Thanks. Okay. So now you can see the label is successfully attached to the deployment, right? So this is our deny rule, and also I have another rule set for blocking the deletion of the critical app. So to demo that, if I delete Nginx as user Peter, again, my request is blocked, but if I delete it as John or as the cluster admin, which means I don't have any flag set, so we should be able to delete the resource successfully. Okay, so that's the deny rule I want to demo. Typically for Kubernetes, you can always use the role-based access control. But with the Kyverno deny policy, it also allows you to deny the certain set of resource to be deleted or updated. So feel free to try it out. Any questions?
So in terms of the conditions we can use, so we can use labels. We can also use, like you showed an example of the request type, and then users and groups, right? Those are the
right. In our resource description block, you can use the labels, kind, name, and namespace match, and also we can match all the cluster roles, the service account, the users information. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay. So the next thing, yeah, we had on the agenda, Yuvraj was going to show us the generate and synchronize. This is a new feature for the generate rules.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Yuvraj. I'm working on Kyverno from last few months. So, yes. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
We can start.
Yuvraj, you might want to increase the font on your shell if you can. There you
Now
go.
it's yeah. So currently my Kyverno is running. Like you can install it from GitHub, and we are. I'm doing demo on generate features. So this is example policy for the generate. Okay. So currently here we define the match block where we define when we want to trigger the when we want to generate the resource, and in the generate part we just use one flag, that is synchronize flag. So currently I have two rules in my policy. One rule is copy the config template, that means config map, from one namespace to the generated namespace. And the second one will create a secret from the data block to the generated resource. So first of all, we will generate the resource, then we will see what synchronize feature do. Now we have the policy. Okay. Now we are creating a default. Now we are creating a config map in the default namespace. Okay. Now we will create a namespace so that we can trigger our generate policy. Now the two resources are generated. One is config map and one is secret. Config map is generated from the default namespace. It is like a copy from the default namespace to the generated namespace, and Mongo credential is generated from the data block. So now we first of all try one thing, like we will try to delete the generated resource because we set the synchronize equation equals to true. That means we want to control everything from the policy. So okay, so it will block our delete request because we don't want to delete it. Like we want that user cannot be able to delete directly. So user only able to delete it via the basically the cluster policy. So now what we are trying is now we will try to update a resource, like because everyone knows we created it from the default namespace. So what we do is we will just update the config template and see what. Okay, this is our config map. Yeah. So now it is updated because we set synchronize flag equals to true. Okay. Now what we try, like what we do is we will try by like we will delete the policy and then we see like what happens. Okay. Yeah. So currently we don't have that resource. Resource is deleted automatically. Now if we like perform all the action with the synchronization flag equals to false, that means we don't want to control everything from the policy. Like the user can directly interact with the generated resource and can be delete or update that resource. Now I'm able to delete that resource because we are not restricting that resource from deleting. That's it. So that's the generate feature. I'm stopping my screen. Any question?
Yeah, so in terms of the way this works then is if you say synchronize is true, basically the data will be kept in sync across all of the namespaces or across the resources. But if you say if it's false, then the user can go and do anything they want even after the data is generated, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And it seems like so this is all done as part of the background scanning and background checking. Um, is that, so like when you were demoing, obviously there was some delay in updating the resources. So is that because of the polling or the interval that we would resync on the background scans?
No. That is because of my local, because I'm running it on local and everything is running on my PC. So that's why I tried it on cluster, on the production cluster, and it seems like worked perfectly in a very less time interval.
Okay, so there was just some slowness in your, all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, this is a pretty nice feature. I think there are some requests for this. Any other questions for on that generate feature or? Okay. Well, if not, let's move on to the next demo we had, which the next two were from Pooja. The first one is, I think, on new operators, and then we'll also talk about some CLI changes and improvements.
Hi everyone, this is Pooja and I'm with Kyverno from a couple of months. So I have few demos for you. So let's start with set operators. Okay, I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so my Kyverno cluster is already running. So here's the YAML file. I'm going to install a simple pod using this file. And then I have a block policy. So according to this policy, this will enforce the user to create, delete, or update on the pod. And so here we are looking on the new operator, that is in. So basically till now we were using equal and it was taking only one value. Now here in we are taking as a array of values. So you can pass your array of strings over here and then you can apply it. So first we will go with this. We will apply this sample pod and we will run the pod and then we will apply the block policy. So ideally it should, after applying the policy, it should it should stop deleting or updating and creating any other pods. So let's check the demo. Okay, so here you can see the Nginx pod is running. Now I'm going to apply the policy. Okay.
You want to check what's on line 17? I guess it's complaining there.
I think it's an indent in front of the message. Yeah.
You have to delete the extra tab in front of message. That should fix it.
Okay.
Two more.
Okay, so the policy is now applied. So here is our policy. Now I'll try to delete the Nginx pod. So here it, as in our policy, it was blocking delete, update, and create. So here we can see one of the block command. So delete is not allowed here. Now I'll try to update it. So I'll just try to change the name over here. Yeah. So you can see it is also blocking the update. So edit is also not allowed. So this is what this feature, this new operator does. You can apply multiple commands at this in the same with the same operator. So you need not to write it again and again. And let's delete it and try with another policy. So I'm just deleting this. Okay, so here I have the similar operator as not in. So in will, so similarly as the in, it will take an array of strings. So I'm applying this with deny rule, and here as it is not in, it should allow update and create. Here I have not mentioned delete, so it should block delete. So let's try this. Okay, so here is our new policy. So here the delete will be restricted and edit will be allowed. Again, I'll try to edit the name. So here it is edited. So it is allowing us to edit it. So let's now try to delete it. Yeah, so it is blocking it. So as we are not defining in deny rule delete, so it will not allow with not in operator, and it is allowing update and create. So this is for set operators demo with in and not in as the new operators. So anything you want to ask?
No, I think this looks good. So previously when I demo my deny rule feature, I have to write two separate rules to
Yes.
block on the both update and the delete request. With this new operator feature, we can write two rules together. I think it's a good improvement.
All right. So, okay. So let's now go for Kyverno CLI. So CLI today I'm going to show two new functionalities. So let's start with one of them. So first I'll take with the multi-YAMLs. So prior to this, we were not able to validate a file which is having multiple policies. So this feature is now, it's there. Here. So first is this file. First we'll go with this file. So this is a single YAML containing two different policies. So in the first policies, it will validate the image tag. So the image tag should be there and it should not be latest. So here it will go for the two validations. And the next policy over here, it will validate the CPU and memory limits. So this is multi-policy YAML containing two different policies, and we have here. So this file consists only one policy, and it is there in the same folder, multi-YAML. And this policy says the pod should have a resource, and the resource should not be default. It should have a namespace, and the namespace should not be default. So let's check the demo for this.
So Pooja, you have a couple of policies which are local. They're not applied into your cluster, and you're trying to validate if those policies are working with some resources. Is that the context?
Yes, so for this, we can use the directly CLI binary file.
Okay.
And then I just saved it in my root folder, and from there directly I'm just using the Kyverno CLI commands.
Okay. Also, by the way, the CLI is now available through Crew, right? So you can, if you're using kubectl, you can also, I think, search for it and download it there.
Right now, actually, I was just directly doing it.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so over here, let me first try with this multi-policy YAML file. So here you can see it. So two files. Here. So the YAML file was having two different policies. So it is validating both the policies. Now, as we can see over here, so this folder was having two different files. So in this file, it was having two different policies, and this one was having one policy. Now I'll validate the folder. So also the folder containing different YAML file of policies can also be directly validated. So let's try this. Okay, so here you can see all the three policies are validated over here. So this is for the multi-YAML file. So any questions over here?
So in this case, when you're validating the policy, so it's not applying the policy to any resource, you're just validating the syntax and if the policy itself is correct.
Yes, so here
Okay.
in the validation, it will just validate the policy. For applying the policy on resources, we can use apply.
Okay, and the multi-YAML, so when we're applying on resources, the resource can also be in that format, like with multi-YAML?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Shooting, I think you had a question, or
No, I have same points wanted to bring up.
Okay. Okay, so now let's move for the third demo. That is for autogen policies. So here,
so the autogen rules are like, so if you write a rule on a pod,
yes. So okay, let me show on which resources I'm going to apply the policy. So I have two resources over here. One is simple for generating the Nginx pod, and one more is an example of creating one deployment. So, and I'll go for the policies. So I'm applying a single policy over here, which we have seen in the previous example for the image tag. So I'm going to use, I'm going to apply this policy on pod and on deployment. Okay, so I'm first going to, okay, I'm just directly going to apply it. So no. So here we have this one here. Okay, so here you can see it is applied for Nginx pod and also for the deployment, and both were actually having the latest tag. So here it is giving an validation error for the latest tag over here, and similarly even for the deployment. And as the image tag was necessary for that validation, it has passed in both the cases. Also, the annotations you can see over here. So in the annotation part, I have not mentioned anything for autogen controllers. So here it is by default, it is adding for all the things, and accordingly it is going to add the rules. So if you see here, it is taking all the types, and here is the rules applied. Similarly for the latest rule, so here the kinds and the rule. So this is where the in annotation it is not mentioned that it is not mentioned where you have where like in autogen controller policy is not mentioned. Now we'll go for another example. So here I have this similar policy, only the difference is I have mentioned it as stateful set and for pods. So here what I'm expecting is it will do the correct validation at the previous one on the sample pod resource, but it should skip for the deployment. So let's just see. Okay, so as expected, it validated for pod nginx and the validation is same as the previous one. But in case of deployment, it is skipping those validations and it is going and it is just validating for other things. And even in the annotations, you can check here is a change. What we have mentioned there in the rule, the same thing comes here, and accordingly the rules get applied. Yeah, so here is the root for latest and same way. Yeah, so I think that's it for the third demo. Any further questions?
So with this now we can test pretty much like autogen policies, all of that can be also tested just through the CLI on any of these resources.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is very useful in terms of as you're writing policies, so should be a big help.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you then.
All right, let's go back to the agenda. So I know we have just about 15 minutes or so left. So I think a few other things we wanted to cover. So in this release, I think there was quite a bit of work done on optimizing lookups for policies. So maybe Shooting, if you want to just describe that.
Right. So we had a few issue bring up by the a few users, like the Kyverno webhook are slow and the Elvis the Kyverno. So we made a few improvements on that. First, we introduced the policy cache, so that in the webhook, whenever we get the admission request, we can fetch the policy based on the policy types. For example, if we're receiving the webhook and the request in the mutation webhook, all we cared about is the mutation policy. And so for any other types of policy, we just skip process those on the request. And also another improvements we have made is that from the previous demo we showed that only the validation block or validation enforce policy should be processed synchronously in the webhook, because we want to use the admission webhook to block the request. And also for any mutation, obviously we have to generate the patches for the request. But other than that, for generate policy or the validation audit policy, we don't need to process those policies synchronously in the webhook. That will take time, right? It'll slow down our response time for each admission request. So we made two separate handlers to process those two kind of policies asynchronously, so that we can reduce the time cost in the webhook as well. Right, that's the two improvements we have. But in this case, I want to share my screen to give you the rough idea about the another change we have made. So we also add the processing time for each admission webhook. So in the top terminal, I'm gonna log up the Kyverno log, but I'm grabbing on the words processing time in the webhook. So it'll give you some idea of the what the time cost for each admission request. So let's quickly check the policy. I have a disallow latest image tag policy defined. This is the validate audit policy. So if I run a pod with the latest image tag, when Kyverno capture this request, it should process it asynchronously, and then it'll print out the process time. So let's see. I have a resource here, pod with the latest tag, and with this policy, let's see what's the time cost. So here, let me grab on my pod name to get the processing time. So you can see here we get a bunch of admission requests for this pod creation, but here it prints out the time cost when we apply the policy to this request. So it's in million seconds, which is pretty reasonable, I think. Yeah, so it helps you to debug in whichever scenario when you see the webhook slowness, it is helpful for the debugging.
Okay. So now, like, even if the number of policies grow and the number of rules grow, it should be constant time in terms of lookups, right? Because I think previously there was logic to walk through and apply each policy. So at least in terms of finding the matching policies, that should be fairly
Right,
fast and performant.
right. Because previously we're fetching all of the policies per admission request, so we don't care whatever if it's applicable or not. So in this case, we're based on the policy type to
Right.
get the policies. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, this will be good too. I know there were a few users who had issues with, especially for larger clusters, right? So this would be good to get some good real world data on and validation on and see if there's more improvements to be made or if this helps address those concerns.
Right.
All right, cool. So I think that anything else? So I know we have a release patch, a release candidate available for 117. I think is it RC3, RC4?
It's RC4 now.
Okay. And we will then, based on feedback, or if there's no other major issues, we will go ahead and issue the 117 release
Right.
fairly soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think that covers everything for 117. I know we just have 10 minutes left, so I don't know if we'll get into all of these, features. And most of these are also logged, of course, in the Git repo. So I'll add like the Git, IDs, and if there's any ideas, suggestions, things like that, we can discuss over there too. So I don't know if there were any particular ones folks wanted to discuss. Otherwise, we can see if there's any other questions or open items. But the next step of things we'll have to do is start prioritizing some of these features on our roadmap for the upcoming releases. Yeah, one that I recently logged and we were discussing, and we can again add some more details in Git, was this customized support, right? So this we'll have to research a little bit more and see if there's ways to just include any customization as part of our mutate rules. So that way we align with how Customize does overlays, and we can in addition to those, we'll continue to support the Kyverno conditionals, like features to do like a if clause on different fields, but at least this way we can also for like I think it'll also help us in merging and patching different types of resources.
Right. I think the main advantage of Customizes, they support different type of patches. So right now, since we're tied to the webhook patch, it is the pure JSON patch, which does not allow you to insert the elements into the array. That's the major difference, I think. So with the Customize, if we gonna support that, we were allowed to support different patches like JSON strategic merge patch. That will bring us a lot of benefits.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty cool to have that. And yeah, another major item we like this policy reporting, right? So today we could generate policy violations on a per resource, per rule basis. So there's some work going on in the policy working group to try and make these to create a a generic policy report CR, which can be used by any policy engine, including like others, like, if somebody's using OPA Gatekeeper, or if somebody's using Falco, or maybe even Kubebench. All of these can report policies results using the same CR. So as part of that, support, we'll have to research and see how we migrate from how we're reporting policy violations today to producing a policy report, which could also have like the successful application of policies, so we can have results at a namespace level. So I think that would be a pretty exciting change too, because then it's easy for an upstream tool or even an admin to quickly see like what the compliance level is on a namespace, etc.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think those were most of the topics we had, and maybe next time we can discuss roadmap items in more detail. And we can of course continue the conversation also on the Git repo. But any other questions, comments, thoughts, items for discussion from anyone? Okay, well, if not, thank you everyone, and we'll post a recording, and let's I think for in the next few weeks we'll talk about, like, I guess as we plan out the roadmap details, and based on feedback from 117, we'll plan like the next major and patch releases. All right,
Sounds good.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Steve.